We now move on to anaerobic respiration. In the beginning, we had seen that cellular respiration takes place by two methods. One is aerobic, that is in presence of oxygen, and the other is anaerobic, that is absence of oxygen. So here we are studying energy production in microorganisms through anaerobic respiration. So most of the examples of anaerobic respiration are with respect to microorganisms, and they are the ones which produce energy in absence of oxygen. Some organisms cannot live in presence of oxygen. For example, many bacteria. Actinomyces, Clostridium, two examples of bacteria that are anaerobic. Such living organisms have to perform anaerobic respiration for energy production. So they generate their energy in absence of oxygen. Glycolysis and fermentation are two steps of anaerobic respiration. We are all familiar with glycolysis, which is the first step. It is a common step for aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. Second step here is fermentation. Glucose is incompletely oxidized and hence less amount of energy is obtained in this type of respiration. The major difference that we are going to notice in aerobic and anaerobic respiration is in the number of ATP that are going to be generated. In case of aerobic respiration, we found that one molecule of glucose gives rise to 38 ATP molecules. But because here the respiration is anaerobic and it is taking place in absence of oxygen, we find that the substrates like glucose remains incompletely oxidized. When the burning or the oxidation is incomplete, we know that there is wastage of fuel and the energy generation that will take place will be very less. So this is one of the major difference, that is less amount of energy we will be obtaining in case of anaerobic respiration. Pyruvic acid produced through glycolysis is converted into other organic acids or alcohol with the help of some enzymes in this process. This is called fermentation. So we know that pyruvic acid is the first product that is formed during glycolysis, and this pyruvic acid is then converted to organic acids or alcohol with the help of some enzymes, and this process is called as fermentation. So we are going to study about anaerobic respiration in the next coming slides. Apart from this, even the RBCs which are present in our body, that is red blood cells, they lack mitochondria and hence they also perform anaerobic respiration. Some more examples of anaerobic respiration we will see in the next slide. Let us see a few more examples of anaerobic respiration. Seeds perform anaerobic respiration if the soil is submerged under water during germination. So germinating seeds perform anaerobic respiration if they are submerged completely in water. Similarly, our muscle cells also perform anaerobic respiration while performing the exercise. Due to this, less amount of energy is produced in our body and lactic acid accumulates, due to which we feel tired. Now we have all experienced this because sometime or the other we may have played some sport, or we have experienced this when we are running very fast, and at times we fall short of breath and the body needs extra energy to continue that sport, that is running, or if you are doing some vigorous exercise or athletics, anything. So body needs extra energy. So at that time the muscle cells start performing anaerobic respiration because oxygen is not reaching the muscles. So when oxygen doesn't reach the muscles due to the vigorous exercising, at that time the muscle cells start performing anaerobic respiration and they produce energy anaerobically. But due to this, it results in the formation of lactic acid. It's a byproduct of anaerobic respiration in case of muscle cells in human beings. So this lactic acid gets accumulated into the tissues and it causes cramps. But after resting, we find that this lactic acid is absorbed into the blood and the cramps are no more felt. So these two are additional examples of anaerobic respiration. Here is a diagrammatic representation of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. We begin with glucose, which is a 6-carbon compound, that is C6H12O6. The very first step is called glycolysis, which takes place in cytoplasm. It's a common step for both aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Here the oxygen is not available and it gets converted to pyruvate. It is also called as pyruvic acid, which is a 3-carbon compound. Now this pyruvate is going to be formed in both the cases, aerobic and anaerobic, because glycolysis is the common step. But here this is incompletely oxidized. The complete oxidation will take place and it results in the formation of energy. Now this pyruvate can have various fates. Now if this pyruvate, in the first case, if we see, in absence of oxygen, fermentation, for example, in yeast. Now if fermentation is taking place in yeast, which is a fungus, and it's commonly used in bakery products. So if the fermentation is being brought about using yeast, then yeast respires anaerobically in absence of oxygen and it brings about fermentation. What are the products? Ethanol, that is C2H5OH, which is a 2-carbon compound. Along with it we get carbon dioxide and energy, and that is how many ATP molecules are we getting? Only 2. Why are we getting only 2 ATP molecules? Because this oxidation of pyruvate is being brought about by yeast in absence of oxygen. Since oxygen is not available, it is incomplete, and so the incomplete oxidation results in only 2 ATP molecules. If this pyruvate were to enter the human muscle cells, if the oxidation is taking place in the human muscle cells, we have just now seen that during vigorous exercising, the oxygen reaching the muscles is very less. So we have written here, in lack of oxygen, for example, in human muscle cells. So oxygen reaching the muscles is very less, and so the muscles start producing extra energy that is required by performing anaerobic respiration. So what are the products? Lactic acid, which is a 3-carbon compound. Again, amount of energy is only 2 ATP. So 2 ATP molecules are produced because again the oxidation is incomplete. Third fate of pyruvate is in presence of oxygen, that is in mitochondria, which we have just now studied as aerobic respiration. So if this pyruvate that is getting finally converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and then it enters the mitochondria, and in presence of oxygen the complete oxidation takes place, giving rise to carbon dioxide, and water vapor is formed. Along with it we are getting 38 ATP molecules. So now here you can make out the difference between the number of ATP molecules that are generated in case of anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. So here in these two cases where oxygen is not available or there is shortage of oxygen, it results in only 2 ATP molecules, whereas in case of complete oxidation in aerobic respiration we get 38 ATP molecules. So this is what is anaerobic respiration, and we will sum up today's session by just a flow chart in the next slide. Now this flow chart is for anaerobic respiration. We start with glucose, which undergoes oxidation during glycolysis, and it results in the formation of pyruvic acid. Now this pyruvic acid can undergo fermentation, give rise to alcohol with the help of yeast. In the previous slide we have seen this, that is ethanol is formed, and the fermentation is brought about by yeast. Then the glucose on glycolysis gives rise to pyruvic acid. Fermentation is brought about, and we get various products of fermentation like vinegar, vitamins. We will study about this in biotechnology, how microorganisms are used to bring about the fermentation, and various products are obtained. So various microbes are involved in the production of various products. Similarly, glucose molecule undergoing glycolysis giving rise to pyruvic acid and brings about fermentation. Lactic acid, as we have studied in case of muscle cells, and that is muscle cells, if they respire anaerobically, they give rise to lactic acid. Erythrocytes, that is RBCs, which lack mitochondria, also respire anaerobically. So with this, we come to the end of anaerobic respiration. We have done a lot of topics. Please go through them again and again, and we shall meet again in the next class with a new topic. Thank you.